garden and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. And so some of you are a bit young. Most of you weren't even born in the 70s, early 80s, 85? All right. I'm telling your age, but that's all right. It's all right to tell it if you look like it or look younger, and that's a good thing. Amen. So most of you are not aware of the title that I'm going to give here, but those of you who have a certain age, myself and older or around my age, are familiar with a slogan that became very famous, and it's going to be the title for today's service. Back in the 70s, there was a slogan that became part of the United Negro College Fund, and it says, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste."
Amen.
And so that's the title today for the message. See, back in the 70s, first of all, let me explain to you, because some of you are too young to even know what the United Negro College Fund is or was. Well, it still exists. And it's called UNCF now. It was founded in April 25, 1944 by Frederick Patterson, president of Tuskegee Institute, and Mary McLeod Bethune, or McLeod Bethune, to provide a steady, consistent stream of funding to 27 financially struggling, small, historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, scattered across the South, okay? And so they started it, and they got funds from Roosevelt. They got funds from very wealthy men to help young African Americans, as its name says, Negroes, who would not have had the opportunity to go to school. So that's what it was designed to do, was to raise funds. And it's been very successful in raising funds to do that. Now, I'm going to step aside for a second and not go off track, but I just want to forget that it's March and we're not in February. I want to teach you a little bit of history, okay? Because sometimes there are historical persons that we may know the name, and unfortunately our children, and we don't pass it down, we don't pass down the history, amen? And one of those people is Mary McLeod Bethune. I want to tell you a little something about her, and it ties into the message, but I just want to give you an appreciation for people that come before you. You understand? Because when you understand your history, then nobody can deceive you. So Mary McLeod Bethune was born in 1875 in a cabin near Mayersville, South Carolina, on a rice and cotton farm in Sumter County. Now, this is what devastates me. She was the 15th of 17 children born to Sam and Patsy McIntosh McLeod. Let's give a hand for Patsy. 17 children. 17.
Bless the Lord.
And back then, every child, you were taking your life in your own hand every time you gave birth. So, both of them were former slaves, and most of her siblings had been born into slavery. Her mother worked as a former master, and her father worked cotton near a large house called the homestead. Here's some other information. Her parents wanted to be independent, so they sacrificed to buy a farm. And as a child, she would accompany her mother to deliver the clothes or the wash. And she was allowed to go into the children's nursery where they didn't look like her, okay? And Mary became fascinated with their toys one day, and she picked up a book. And as she opened it, one of the children took it from her and saying, "You don't know how to read." And so she decided from that day that the only difference between her and the children that didn't look like her was the ability to read and write. So she said, "I'm going to learn."
All right.
All right, so not only that, so she attended a one-room schoolhouse, and then she went to Trinity Mission School, and then she was able to go to another school that the Presbyterian Board of Missions and Freedmen created. And then to get to school, though, she had to walk 5 miles each day. I want you to stop and pause for a second when you say, "I'm feeling a little tired to go to church." Or your children get up and they have a sniffle and they say, "Mom, I can't go to school today."
Wow.
When they hop on a school bus, or in my kid's case, you drop them off at the door. You better be ready for your grade before you miss school. See, that used to be an old concept. Another old concept, and again, I'm not trying to pick, it's again the same thing I've emphasized to my children. Electronics are nice, but reading is better.
Amen.
Yesterday, my son took the SAT, and I told him from a young time before, if you don't read, it's going to cost you.
That's right.
Okay? If you don't read, it's going to cost you. And I know we hand them these little electronics, but trust me, when it comes time to read a complex passage,
Say that.
that video game's not going to help
Say it,
you.
say it, say it.
But I'm going to back it up. Children read when they see their parents read. Okay? Just throw that out. I want to finish though. After her marriage and moved to Florida, she decided to start a school for girls. And so she started the school for girls, and she rented a small house for $11 per month. And she made benches and desks from discarded crates and acquired other items She used $1.50 to start a literary and instructional training school for Negro girls. She had 6 students initially, 5 girls aged 6 to 12, and her son Albert. And the school was on a dump in Daytona. Anybody familiar with Daytona, Florida? So it was on a dump right into Daytona, Florida. And so parents of the students and church members, oh, wait a minute, the church is getting involved in educating children, raised money by making sweet potato pies, it's the South, ice cream and fried fish, and selling them to crews at the dump.
Come on.
We got to raise money, and we need to be entrepreneurial, okay? So the church got involved. In the early days, the students made ink for pens from elderberry juice. I don't know what elderberry is. Pencils from burned wood, then asked local businesses for furniture. She wrote a letter, now here's the letter, and I'm going to get ready to close. She said, I considered cash money as the smallest part of my resources. I had faith in a loving God, faith in myself, and a desire to serve.
Say that.
The school received donations of money, equipment, and labor from local black churches. Within a year, Bethune was teaching more than 30 girls. I'm going to end with the curriculum because I want you to understand how things are based on your perspective. The rigorous curriculum she had the girls at 5:30 a.m. for Bible study.
Say it.
The classes in home economics and industrial skills such as dressmaking, millinery, cooking, and other crafts emphasized a life of self-sufficiency. The students' days ended at 9 p.m.
Wow.
5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. And one of the things I want, instead of we go 9 to 5, they went 5 to 9. What I want you to begin to understand is that any people can only rise as far as the people that they emulate.
All right.
And when you
All
emulate actors, actresses, athletes, as opposed to educators, teachers, and instructors, don't be surprised if you end up ignorant.
Say that. Say that. Say that. Say that.
That's just a truism.
My Lord.
You become whom you emulate. If you emulate a mathematician, then what will you generally become? If you emulate a teacher, then what will you generally become? If you emulate, and this, don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing, but if you emulate athletes solely, then chances are, and there's only about 500 that can play in the pro leagues, what happens to the rest? And what happens to the aspiration, okay? This is all part of the word that I'm going to teach you, okay? So let's go into how we came to a mind is a terrible thing to waste.